If there's one secret that opens a man's heart more than anything else, it's emotional safety. It's not about being perfect, always saying the right thing, or agreeing with everything he does. Emotional safety is about creating a space where he doesn't have to perform, fix, or defend. It's about being the kind of presence that allows his nervous system to relax, his defenses to lower, and his truth to surface. When a man feels safe emotionally, he begins to open up, not because he has to, but because he wants to. That's where real connection begins. Most men have been taught from a young age to suppress their emotions. Man up, don't cry, get over it. These messages don't disappear with age. They embed deeply into the way a man navigates relationships. Many men, even the kindest and most loving ones, grow up with a silent rule. Vulnerability is risky. The world may praise strength, but inside they're often longing for someone who can love them in their entirety. The strong parts, the confused parts, the tender parts too. He doesn't need you to fix him. He needs to know he won't be shamed or shut down for feeling what he feels. Safety doesn't mean letting things slide or ignoring your needs. It means knowing how to express yourself in a way that doesn't make him feel attacked or inadequate. It's the difference between saying, "You never open up to me," versus saying, "I feel closest to you when you share what's really on your heart." One creates distance, the other creates an invitation. When a man feels like he's constantly under evaluation, his instinct is to retreat, to armor up. But when he feels encouraged and appreciated for simply being real, he starts to show up in ways that might surprise even you. A lot of people misunderstand masculine energy. It's not that men can't express emotion, it's that many haven't had the space or the tools to do it without fear of judgment. When you become the space where he can breathe, where he doesn't have to filter or fear backlash, something powerful happens. He drops deeper into himself, and from that place, he can connect more deeply with you. That's when he starts sharing not just what he did today, but how he felt doing it. That's when he begins to say things like, "I've never told anyone this before," and you realize you've touched something sacred in him. You don't have to be perfect to create this space. You just have to be present. You have to listen without rushing to fix, without jumping to conclusions. You have to be willing to sit in silence sometimes, allowing him to find his words without pressure. And when he does speak from that vulnerable place, protect it. Don't weaponize it later. Don't mock it or throw it back in an argument. He's watching to see what you do with his trust. And if you hold it gently, that trust will grow. Creating safety also means being safe within yourself. When you're emotionally regulated, when you can feel your feelings and not be controlled by them, you become a steadying presence. That steadiness isn't just attractive, it's magnetic. He may not be able to explain it, but he'll feel drawn to you, not just for physical reasons, but because your energy feels like home. When he knows that your love isn't conditional on his performance, when he senses that you're here to relate, not to rate, his whole body exhales, his guard lowers, and the heart opens. Many women wait for the man to lead emotionally, but the truth is, emotional connection is often initiated by a woman's energy, not through force, but through her own openness. Your willingness to listen without judgment, to ask with curiosity rather than criticism, to honor his process without rushing it. These are not small things. They are the foundation of deeper emotional intimacy. A man may not say it in so many words, but when he feels emotionally safe, he'll keep coming back, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. He'll want to invest. He'll want to grow. He'll want to stay connected to you, and you'll want to stay creating that kind of space. Healing him stays a massive honor, as it is a challenge of truly leaning into the power of who you already are at your core. Compassionate, intuitive, emotionally intelligent, It's about being rooted enough in yourself that you don't take his walls personally, but instead recognize them as a sign of a heart that's been conditioned to hide. When you become the space where he can finally be seen without the mask, heard without interruption, and loved without condition, something beautiful unfolds. Not just in him, but in both of you. One of the most overlooked but powerful tools in creating emotional connection is the ability to notice and affirm the good in someone, especially in your partner. In a world where so much of our attention gets pulled toward what's wrong, what's missing, or what needs fixing, it becomes almost revolutionary to focus on what's right. In relationships, this principle is not just helpful, it's transformative. What you choose to focus on, you grow. And when you regularly celebrate the good in a man, you build a bridge that invites more of that goodness into your connection. Men thrive on appreciation. It's not about inflating his ego or stroking his pride in a performative way. It's about genuinely acknowledging the qualities, actions, and efforts he puts forth that add value to the relationship and to your life. When a man feels seen for who he is and not just for what he does wrong or could do better, he naturally feels inspired to give more. Affirmation isn't manipulation, it's nourishment. Just like plants lean towards sunlight, men lean into love when it feels warm, encouraging, and safe. In many relationships, especially over time, partners fall into the habit of pointing out flaws or mistakes more often than expressing gratitude or admiration. While it's natural to address challenges and communicate needs, if the scale tips too far in that direction, the emotional climate begins to feel heavy, critical, and transactional. Over time, this leads to emotional withdrawal. A man who feels he can never get it right, no matter how hard he tries, may stop trying altogether. Not because he doesn't care, but because he feels defeated. On the other hand, when a man feels like his efforts are noticed, even the small ones, he builds emotional momentum. He feels like a success in your eyes, and that feeling becomes addictive in the best way. Persuasion reinforcement doesn't mean you ignore issues or settle for less than you deserve. It means you recognize that your energy and your words have the power to either close someone off or bring them closer. A simple thank you for doing that, or I loved how you handled that, can go a long way in softening his heart. When you make it a practice to acknowledge the good, his thoughtfulness, his reliability, his strength, his humor, you're reinforcing the very qualities you want more of. Your appreciation becomes a mirror that reflects his best self back to him. This kind of praise is most effective when it's specific and sincere. Instead of just saying, "You're great," tell him what exactly made you feel loved or supported. For example, "I really appreciated how you listened to me last night without trying to fix it. It made me feel so safe and understood." Or, "I noticed how you stayed calm even when things got tense. That really impressed me." These kinds of affirmations do more than boost his confidence. They build trust. They show him that you're paying attention, that you see him, not just as a partner, but as a person. Sometimes we assume that men should already know that we appreciate them or that they don't need that kind of emotional affirmation. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Most men are starving for it, even if they don't say so outright. Many are carrying silent doubts about whether they're good enough, capable enough, or lovable enough. When your words affirm his worth, not because he performed, but because of who he is, you feed something deep inside him that longs to be accepted and celebrated. The beauty of this principle is that it also transforms you. When you begin looking for things to celebrate instead of things to criticize, your own experience of the relationship shifts. You start to feel more grateful, more connected, more aware of the ways you're being supported. That gratitude radiates outward, and suddenly you're not just in a relationship that functions, You're in one that thrives. You're creating a space where both of you want to be better, not because you're afraid of failure, but because love inspires it. Celebrating the good doesn't require grand gestures or dramatic speeches. It's in the daily moments, the glance, the smile, the simple acknowledgement. It's in the tone of your voice when you say thank you, in the way you light up when he walks in the room, in the willingness to see the intention even when the execution isn't perfect. These are the bricks that build the bridge to deeper intimacy, trust, and joy. When love becomes a place of affirmation instead of evaluation, everything changes. Connection deepens, walls come down, and the relationship becomes a source of life instead of stress. There's a subtle but powerful difference between telling someone what to do and inspiring them to show up more fully through the energy you bring. In relationships, especially with men, this difference often determines whether connection deepens or resistance grows. Feminine energy, in its true essence, doesn't operate through control, pressure, or demands. It operates through invitation. It's the soft yet magnetic force that draws someone in, not because they have to come closer, but because they want to. It's not about being passive or submissive. It's about recognizing that the deepest influence you can have often doesn't come through direction. It comes through your presence. Masculine energy is built around doing, fixing, and solving. It thrives when it feels like it's winning, like it's making progress. But it also bristles at being told what to do or how to feel. This is not about ego, it's about wiring. When a man feels like he's being corrected or instructed, especially in an emotional context, he can easily go into shutdown or defensiveness. It's not because he doesn't care, it's because he feels like he's being controlled or judged. But when you express yourself in a way that invites him into your world, into your emotions, and into your desires, without commanding or criticizing, you unlock something very different in him. You awaken his natural instinct to provide, to support, and to connect. Feminine energy is powerful not because it demands, but because it attracts. You don't need to tell him what to do when you're radiating from a place of grounded self-worth. Instead of saying, "You never make time for me," you can say, "I love it when we have quality time together. It makes me feel so connected to you." One sounds like an accusation, the other is an invitation. And here's the magic. Men want to win with the woman they love. They want to make you happy. But the way you communicate your needs often determines whether he hears them as criticism or as a call to rise. When you speak from your heart rather than from a place of control, your words land differently. You're not trying to change him. You're expressing who you are, how you feel, and what lights you up. You're letting him see you, not manage him. That shift in energy changes the dynamic. He's no longer responding out of guilt or fear. He's responding out of desire. That's where the emotional connection deepens, not because you told him to open up, but because your presence made it safe and appealing for him to do so. This doesn't mean you stay quiet about your needs or shrink yourself to avoid conflict. Quite the opposite. Feminine energy is not weak. It's deeply rooted in truth. It's about expressing what you feel without controlling the outcome. It's about saying, "This is what's real for me right now," and allowing space for him to respond. When you stop trying to script his role in your life and start letting your energy guide the interaction, you create a space where he can step in more freely. He begins to feel like a partner, not a project. And from that place, real intimacy can grow. So much of modern life teaches us to lead with logic, to take charge, to fix what's broken. That has its place, but in relationships, especially romantic ones, influence is not always about volume or directness. Sometimes it's about softness, receptivity, and emotional honesty. When you embody feminine energy, you shift the entire dynamic. You move from forcing to flowing, from directing to dancing. And in that dance, he finds room to breathe and respond, not out of obligation, but out of genuine connection to you. It can be tempting to try to manage the relationship, to keep everything on track by telling him what needs to happen. But control creates pressure. Pressure creates resistance, and resistance kills intimacy. When you release the need to direct everything and instead embody the energy of trust, you send a powerful message, not just to him, but to yourself. You're saying, I trust my worth. I trust my energy. I trust that what is meant for me will come willingly. Well, that kind of confidence is irresistible, not because it demands, but because it invites. And what comes through invitation is always more lasting and more real than anything forced. When a man feels inspired by your energy rather than managed by your words, he steps into a different version of himself. One of the most nuanced and essential skills in building a deeper emotional connection with a man is learning the art of emotional timing. It's not just what you say or how you say it, it's when you say it. Knowing when to lean in with warmth, presence, and emotional openness, and when to give him the space to process, reflect, or just be, can make the difference between building intimacy and accidentally pushing him away. This doesn't mean walking on eggshells or waiting for perfect conditions to express yourself. It means tuning in to the rhythm of the relationship, reading his emotional cues with compassion, and trusting your own inner wisdom to guide you. Men and women often process emotions differently. While many women find clarity and connection through talking things out, many men need time to go inward before they're ready to engage. It's not that they're avoiding emotion or running from connection, it's that they're wired to solve internally first. A man might pull back not because he's shutting you out, but because he's trying to make sense of his own feelings before he can share them. If in those moments you lean in with pressure, asking for explanations, demanding emotional access, or insisting he talk now, you may trigger his defenses. But if you can recognize that his silence isn't always rejection, that it might actually be part of his process, you create a space where he can come back to you more fully, not out of fear, but out of choice. Leaning in at the right time means being emotionally available without being emotionally overwhelming. It's about approaching him with curiosity instead of confrontation, and being willing to sit in temporary discomfort for the sake of long-term connection. Timing also involves self-awareness, recognizing whether you're reaching for him out of genuine desire to connect or out of anxiety and a need for reassurance. When you try to force connection in a moment when he's emotionally unavailable, you often end up feeling even more disconnected. But when you wait until the energy is right, when he's open, grounded, and present, your vulnerability lands in a much deeper place. Giving space doesn't mean disappearing or withholding love. It means trusting that the bond you're building doesn't require constant proximity to stay alive. In fact, moments of distance can be powerful. They allow both partners to reset emotionally, to reflect, to reconnect with themselves. And when you reunite, even if just after a few hours or a day, that space can create a renewed sense of closeness. Men often gain clarity through solitude. If you respect that rather than resist it, you become someone he can feel safe around. Not because you're always there, but because you know when to be near and when to step back. When you sense that he's shutting down, withdrawing, or emotionally checked out, the instinct might be to pursue, to ask more questions, to push harder for a response. But what works better is creating emotional safety through your steadiness. A simple, "I'm here when you're ready," can speak louder than a dozen demands. It tells him that you trust him to come back. And when he does, he'll remember that you didn't try to control his process. You honored it. This emotional dance isn't about guessing or playing games. It's about staying emotionally attuned. Sometimes leaning in means initiating a heartfelt conversation or offering a gentle touch. Other times it means going for a walk by yourself, journaling your feelings, or focusing on your own well-being while he works through his. Emotional timing asks for a kind of maturity, not just in managing your emotions, but in respecting his. It's the understanding that connection doesn't always come through words, and that space doesn't mean absence of love. Often, it's a deeper form of it. The more you practice this, the more intuitive it becomes. You start to feel the rhythm of when his heart is open and when it's guarded. You begin to sense when he's available to go deeper and when he needs to breathe. And in honoring that, you send a message not just to him, but to yourself. That love doesn't have to be forced to be real. It can flow, it can ebb, it can return stronger when it's not pressured. This kind of attunement builds trust. It shows that you're not just in it for the emotional high, but for the real living process of relationship. A process that requires both presence and patience. There is nothing more magnetic, more disarming, and more connective than authenticity. In a world that often encourages people to mask their true selves, especially in dating and relationships, showing up as the real you is both rare and incredibly powerful. Authenticity isn't about being dramatic or spilling every detail of your life. It's about being honest with your emotions, grounded in your truth, and courageous enough to let someone see who you really are. Vulnerability, when it comes from a place of strength, becomes a bridge that invites others to lower their walls and meet you on a deeper level. For many women, especially those who are strong, capable, and used to handling life on their own, it can be tempting to lead with the polished version of yourself, the one who has it all figured out, who doesn't need anyone, who keeps things light and easy. But while that may keep things safe, it can also keep things surface level. Real connection doesn't grow in perfection, it grows in the messy, beautiful truth of who you are when you stop performing and start revealing. When you have the courage to say, this is how I really feel, or this is something that matters to me, even if it's scary to say, you open a door that invites the other person to do the same. Men, in particular, are often conditioned to hide their vulnerability. They're taught to be stoic, to solve rather than feel, to show strength even when they're hurting inside. Because of this, many men are not quick to open their hearts. But what many don't realize is that when a woman leads with authentic vulnerability, not as a tactic, but as a truth, she gives permission for that guarded part of him to come forward. Not because she asked for it, but because she modeled it. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's strength in its most intimate form. It says, I trust myself enough to be seen, even if there's no guarantee how you'll respond. Being authentically you means embracing your imperfections, your fears, your hopes, your needs, all without apology. It means not pretending to be more chill, more aloof, or more agreeable than you actually feel. It means telling the truth kindly and clearly, even when it's uncomfortable, because that's what creates emotional resonance. That's what makes someone feel like they're not just in a relationship with an image, they're in a relationship with you. And when someone falls in love with the real you, not just the curated version, the love that grows is deeper, stronger, and far more sustainable. This kind of vulnerability also helps eliminate the game playing that so often derails modern relationships. When you're clear about who you are and what you value, you stop attracting people who want to mold you into something else. You stop feeling the need to chase or convince. Instead, you begin to naturally align with people who resonate with your truth. And for the right man, your authenticity won't scare him off. It will draw him in. He may not even be able to articulate why, but something about your openness, your realness, your willingness to be seen will make him feel more at home, more safe, more curious to explore who he gets to be with you. Of course, vulnerability requires discernment. It's not about sharing everything all at once or exposing your heart to someone who hasn't earned your trust. But it is about taking small, courageous steps toward intimacy by being honest in the moments that matter. It's in those moments when you say what you really feel, when you ask for what you truly need, when you allow your emotions to be felt without filtering, that a man gets to meet the woman behind the mask. And that's where love begins to grow, not just on the surface, but in the soul. Authenticity also liberates you. When you're no longer trying to be what you think he wants, you reclaim your energy. You stop performing and start living. You get to enjoy being chosen for who you are, not who you're pretending to be. And that's the only kind of love that feels fulfilling in the long run. You don't have to hide your quirks, minimize your needs, or dim your light to keep someone's interest. The right person will find your truth refreshing, not overwhelming. Your honesty will feel like clarity. Your heart will feel like home. And your presence, unfiltered and full, will invite him to drop into his own heart, one vulnerable step at a time.